It's just
So,
like,
how do you feel about the conversation that this is what every empire goes through when it has a diversity within it?
well, I think right now capitalism is falling apart for our country. I think, like in a lot of these at the end of the day, I don't know if this is answering your question or whatever, but I think at the end of the day,
Actually, a
capitalism.
viewer's question.
What happened?
It's
Sorry.
actually a viewer's question. It's a viewer's question. If
Repeat the question.
yeah, if the experience that we're having is basically an empire falling apart and because of diversity, not because of diversity, but that any empire that has diversity comes to this kind of crossroad.
Yeah. How do I feel about it? Is that
Yeah,
what the question
yeah,
is?
yeah. Basically,
It's true. It's true. Like the people of power always want to retain power, so they start doing a lot of crazy, desperate things. In my view, that 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 end up screwing it up even more. Instead of like looking at it, taking a step back and looking at it, and thinking, okay, if we provide this to the people, we could prolong whatever power that we have. Instead, they want to get a money grab or do whatever that they're doing, and it ends up making it worse. You know what I mean? I could be wrong. You know, this is my perspective and from what I've been hearing from other people talk about and how I kind of concluded to this kind of like viewpoint. But I feel like when it comes to capitalism and power, they want to keep retaining it. So they get greedy and they keep trying to do things that without even thinking about the long term effects about it. And how can I explain it? And because of that, it creates more damage to whatever it is that they're trying to retain. You know what I mean? Like imagine like I'm gonna take all the money, I'm gonna take all this and that, and now other people don't have it. How do you keep the rest of the stuff stabilized if the resources aren't there for them? You know what I mean? That's where the problem is. If you gave people the resources to survive, you can maintain capitalism. That's why a certain amount of socialism needs to be incorporated into capitalism. But people, you know, they've already damned socialism and communism and everything else to the point where they're like, no, we don't need that. That's bad. You know what I mean? And then what happens, right? People struggle. People then become desperate. They start robbing and stealing and killing and doing whatever they got to do to survive. And the rich people, you know, they think they're good for a while, and then eventually it comes to their doorstep. You know what I mean? That's what's happening. You know, some countries actually see this, and they make the look what they did with some of the stimuluses in some of this country where they get a monthly stimulus check, or I don't know if it's weekly or monthly or whatever, but they're getting consistent money to keep things going. In our country, every 9 months, what is it, 9 months now? It took for us to get a stimulus check, and then we're gonna get $2,000, and even the $2,000 is gonna come and go real quick if these vaccines don't get
it's
deployed
not even.
quickly, right?
It's 600 right now. Remember, they haven't even passed the additional $1,400. So, and also the system is so screwed up that like I got my first check through the basically the IRS gave the information to the government. This time I have to get a physical check. So, and I looked into it and I was like, what the hell? It's just like making it so that it's more difficult for people. Like for me, I'm gonna have to wait until maybe the 15th or the 18th to get my $600. Well, I know people who are just. I mean, look, I hate to tell you, that's a lot for some people just to have. That's rent. That's part
Yep.
of your rent right there.
They screwed up some of the payments. You heard about that, right? They said that because
No.
of the fact that it went through a certain process that I think during for taxes. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think they said something about taxes. It went through their tax, some sort of tax process or whatever it is. So some people that processed their taxes ended up getting the people's stimulus money, like it went through their bank and it went to that, you know, so they got to correct it. So some stimulus checks are delayed because of it. I'm not exactly sure that what it was. I have to do more research, but some Teresa got her check. I didn't get any check because I didn't apply or whatever for whatever, because I'm self-employed or whatever, and I got to resolve certain tax issues, and then eventually maybe I can get it later on down the line. But if not, then whatever. It's what it is. But for some people who did stuff and it's related somehow within their taxes, and they did it through a tax broker or whatever it is, like one of those tax companies like H&R Block or whatever it is. Some of that went into their bank, and it got held up in their bank, and now they have to correct it in order for them to get those payments. That's what I heard on the news or something the other day. I have to do. I wasn't really prepared to talk about it today, but that's screwed up. You know what I mean? Like okay, some of these people aren't getting their checks right away. Like some people got it right. What is it? Right before the New Year's or whatever it is. I think it came right before
New Year's.
Yep. Yep. So great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for screwing it up again. That's incompetence, man. We live in a country where things aren't done the correct way, and then they're gonna get debit cards. I had a friend of mine who had gotten it on a debit card, and somebody, which is screwed up, took his money. I don't know what they did. They did some scheme thing, and they ended up taking his money. I don't know if there's any way for him to get it back. I haven't touched base with him regarding that, but there's even scammers out there taking people's money. So we're living in an effed up world right now, and that's because of greed that's coming from the top. If they weren't greedy, people wouldn't be doing these desperate things. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen, but it would be less. You know what I mean? Now the criminals are out really trying to take other people's money because they're not getting it. Nobody's getting it. Drug dealers aren't getting their money right now. There's a lot of people out there not getting their money right now because of the whole COVID thing and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of desperate people out there making desperate and irrational decisions that can endanger people. And I blame capitalism for that. I think it's a good thing to some degree, but we need socialism. We need socialism and some forms of community driven and stuff. I was talking to a bunch of people recently about community driven stuff where we're helping each other find resources for food, money, work, and so on and so forth. And we all agree on it, but there's not really that many opportunities because if the government's not providing the funding for a lot of this stuff, as much as we want to do things community driven, it's a hard thing to do, man. It's a hard thing to succeed doing. What happened?
Yeah, it's a hard pill to swallow. I was just finishing it.
Yeah, basically, right? How are we supposed to do something if we don't have the resources? At the end of it, is a cause and effect. Everything has a cause and effect, a yin and a yang, right? It's a yes or a no or whatever it is. This is something I think I've talked to you about before. If something doesn't give, nothing takes, right? You know what I mean? There's nothing we could do if I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but I'm trying to get the point across.
And I want to just give you the contrary view of somebody who, I guess, what do you think happens when people riot in cities? Somebody's got to clean it all up. I think that was somebody on YouTube chat threw that in there. I just wanted to say that I am not for rioting, and I honestly I have no issue with property damage personally, but at the same time, I think that when you have grievances like that, you're not going against a Capitol building. You're not going against. You can say that is patriotic to go against Capitol buildings, but that's insane. That's an insane thing to say, because what you're doing is you're going against the actual thing that was happening there, which was the honoring of ballots. It's the honoring of ballots towards an election. So you're not going against the actual Senate. You're not going against the congressional authorities. What you're doing is you're just saying, we're just going to destroy an historic building to please ourselves, to make ourselves feel better because we lost. So that's different than a riot. A riot or even a protest that is going in that kind of more aggressive zone. Most of those protests have something that they come from. They come from somebody, dying for it. You're coming from people. Yeah, I mean, it's just a completely different idea. Nobody died. Nobody had have police go on their neck for that.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
and I understand if this person doesn't agree with us on that. I think that that's a fair assessment, but I also think that it's insane to think that they equate the two. That's what's happening is that you're equating the two as this is the same as if in a city, you know, you're having a protest where people are marching down a street and things get out of control. Most times because the cops have gotten out of control. And that's what I have seen personally is the cops get out of control and therefore just decide, you know what, we're going to kettle them into a certain area and we're going to decide that we're going to arrest people. So I just wanted to bring that up because it pisses me off when people think that this is the same as a march, a protest. This is not the same thing. This is a direct attack on a building.
Not just that, it's also the people voted for this. There were over, what is it, over 1 million more votes for Biden or something like that. I don't remember what exactly the count was, but he won substantially over Trump, as well as he also won the Electoral College. So this is the country's voice that they're against. You know what I mean? These people claim to be patriots and so on and so forth, but then they go and try to disrupt the whole process. Like that's fascism, and what's the word I'm looking for? That's authoritarianism. You know what I mean? There's a lot of you know, you're basically overriding the will of the people, and you might not agree with it because you know, I'm not saying you voted for Trump. I don't know what the person who they voted for, but at the end of the day, if somebody loses, just like the Democrats have lost, you got to eat it and deal with it, right? It feels like shit, but you got to eat it, right? At the end of the day, right? And then also it's like if somebody dies and people are like with the riots aspect, if somebody's getting hurt and killed and dying because of police brutality or so on and so forth, you know, there's a logical reason for why they're mad and why they want to break things and hurt things and do whatever else. They're not beating people up necessarily. They're destroying property of the places that they feel are responsible, and in some cases, for that. And then also during the pandemic, you also got to think there's a pandemic going on during that time. There were some people taking advantage of the rioting and looting to get Pampers and stuff because they weren't getting help. Like there's different perspectives of everything that was going on during those riots that happened during this time. So for you to like lump it all into like, oh, they did this and did that. I agree. I hate rioting and everything because you're destroying people's property. But a lot of that's insured. You know what I'm saying? The Capitol building is a process that this government has had for many, many years to elect the president to hopefully create a government that's going to, you know, do something for the people. Now, I understand if you're pissed off as a person in this country that you don't feel the government's doing the right thing. And that's why you vote. That's why you run for office. That's why you do whatever you got to do. You primary whoever you got to do. Trust me, I'm not a fan of either the Democrats or the Republicans, to be honest with you. I'm considered a progressive social democrat, right? You know, I feel that we need more for the people and whatever else, and I feel like they're not giving us enough. But you're allowed to have your own perspective on how you feel about the government and so on and so forth. But I'm going to do it by creating a community of people so that we can vote and do what we have to do to change these things. Not going out there punching people in the face, threatening people. Some of these people that came to the Capitol things came with irritants that they were spraying at the police. You know what I mean? It wasn't just the police spraying it at them. They were spraying it at the police. And, you know, like I said, like you could say whatever you want to say about how you feel about riots, but they're not the same thing, man. They're definitely not. You know, I'm sorry. I'm just that it's an emotional topic, man. Because that whole George Floyd thing really pissed me off. You know, when I was younger, I've had a cop put a gun to my head. I could have died that day. You know what I mean? This was during the Giuliani years where they didn't give a damn about, you know, it was a lot more hectic. I'm 44 years old. You know what I mean? So I could tell you some New York City crap that I've been through, that where police weren't, they were way over out of line or whatever. I do believe there's supposed to be some law and order in this country, but if you're stepping past that boundary where you're hurting people that aren't, and it's not justified, it pisses me off. And I do understand why people riot about that. But for you to go over there over a freaking election, I didn't go to the Capitol when I felt like in the past where it was cheated. When what was it, Bush Gore? Well, I don't remember the. It was one of them that
Yeah.
there was one
Which was
election. Yeah, there was an election. I was pissed the hell off. Well, I'm like, this is BS, man. But it is what it is. Hillary, like, I'm not a big fan of Hillary. Hillary won the popular vote, but she lost the electoral college. I was annoyed because I'm a registered Democrat or whatever it is, but I didn't go out there and start raiding the Capitol over that. It is what it is. So you know, everybody's got to learn how to deal with it. This country's a decent country when it's not doing this, BS or whatever it is, and we all gotta, like, I don't know, man. I'm sorry if you don't agree with me, but that's the whole thing. We all gotta be able to talk and move forward, bro. Like, at the end of the day, you understand what I'm saying, right, Ant? Like, we all gotta move forward. We all gotta, like, we all. Yeah, man, we all got to move forward, man. We can't be, like, nitpicking over, like, what coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know what I mean? Like, we've all been cheated. At the end of the day, we've all been cheated. We all don't have stimulus. We all suffering. You know what I mean? So, I'm sorry. I'm just that relationship pisses me off a little bit. I'm sorry, and I'm
No,
not mad at. I'm not
I
at the mad. Okay, go ahead. I'm just saying I'm
no,
not
no.
mad
I
at
just
the.
back into, like, because the only thing that we did as a population when Hillary lost in 2016 was we did the Women's March, which is the biggest march there was, but people didn't die.
Yep.
It's very important to know the difference between the two. What the most that we did was 2 months later, we went out into the streets and we protested.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Huge difference.
Yep. And I not to criticize all the right, all the conservatives out there, but you hear things like from conservatives saying, "Oh, these people are protesting and holding up traffic. We should run them over." That's the things that we hear from the right. I don't hear that from the left. You know what I mean? As much as I don't agree with everything liberal, like I said, I'm more progressive and more social democrat, status or whatever it is. I would never say run somebody over for protesting. I understand the whole concept of if there's somebody having a heart attack and we're holding up traffic, you can cause that person to die if you're holding up traffic because you're having a protest. I understand why people are pissed off about it. But I would never say run somebody over. This is the mentality that I hear from the right all the time. You know what I mean? That it's like, shut these people up, run these people over. You know what I mean? That's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I would never suggest that. That's somebody's family member that you're suggesting to run over. You know what I mean? I saw what happened during the riots and whatever it is, and cops like hitting people with their cars and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's funny because what happened yesterday or whatever it is, the same people that supposedly support the cops all of a sudden decided to get pissed off at the cops because they didn't, in some cases, let them do what they wanted to do. Like, they're like, you're betraying your country. You're a traitor. You're this. You're that. They're calling them all sorts of crazy stuff on some of these on some of these yeah, you know what I mean. So pick a side, bro. Like, either you like the cops or you don't. Or you just like, you call us snowflakes. You're being snowflakes, bro. And not you personally. Like I said, I don't want to badmouth the person that asked the question. Like, I try to be rational, but it's just, at the end of the day, it's like you call Democrats snowflakes, but then you raid the freaking Capitol. I'm like, come on, man. Like, that's crazy, And thank you for your question and your involvement with our show. We appreciate you. But yeah. Like, we all got to be able to communicate. I wish I could talk to you personally, and maybe we could discuss a different views, because I think that's what the problem is with a lot of the stuff, is that we don't get to talk enough in rational, reasonable ways.